Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Jessica Clemons, and this is a breakdown of The Boys Season 5, Episode 1, 15 Inches of Sheer Dynamite, and Episode 2, Teenage Kix. The final season is here and brings with it immediate heartbreak. Nothing but sadness. Nothing but sadness. Every Thursday here at New Rockstars on the New Rockstars channel, you can expect a breakdown of The Boys, where I'll be breaking down every episode for all the Easter eggs and missed details you might have missed, and there are a lot in these 2 episodes. Before we get into it though, make sure you want to start the new year off right, and I know that we're getting into summer, so make sure to check out nerdride.shop for the latest and greatest and great fashion tips for the summer. And by fashion tips, maybe just don't get a sweatshirt. Wear like a normal little t-shirt. We have t-shirts, we have hats, we have jackets, we got hoodies, we got everything for everything you need. I'm wearing Doom merch because this Doom merch is sick as heck. But if you don't want to wear suit merch, then you can definitely wear like the Pit merch. There's so many different options for merch over there at nerdride.shop. It's the best way to support the channel. Go check it out. I know that we got some boys merch over there. And we have some Gen V merch still. Go get your Godolphin University shirts. All right, now let's get into it. If you're confused and need a recap on where we are, the show offers a nice and tight one, but if you want a more in-depth look covering every season of the series and the spin-offs, you can check out my homework video that I released last week, because I'm not gonna be, doing any kind of recap in this. Episode 1 is titled 15 Inches of Sheer Dynamite, which is clearly named after Love Sausage's penis. It also could call back to issue number 14 of the comics, where little Nina was killed when Butcher put a bomb in her giant vibrator. It opens with a quick recap from Vought International. We open with Homelander posing for the cameras. Funny enough, the episode opens almost the exact same way as the first episode does in the series, because this clip is from that very first episode. This is from that moment when Homelander and Maeve saved those 2 boys from being hostages. You can even spot some of the same details in the background, the A-Train Rapid Transit posters and the man in the coat and tie. Rapid Transit stars A-Train, made by Vought Studios, not to be confused with Training A-Train, another film from Vought Studios that also stars Will Ferrell, along with A-Train. In the back is a newspaper ad that says, "Read the news everywhere you go," and the publisher is the New York Examiner, which is actually the newspaper from Marvel. There's a small Queen Maeve cover. It's specifically for Queen Maeve's comic book in universe, and of course the deep's fucking shit. The video begins glitching and we're brought back to the events of Flight 37 from all the way in season 1. That same footage that Maeve used as leverage to save Butcher and Ryan, the same plane incident that drove Dean Shetty to create a soup virus in the first place that's now in Butcher's hands that could kill all soup. So, it's all connected. Then it cuts to the footage the day that they swore in Firecracker and Sister Sage into the 7 publicly, and every time they introduce a new traumatic moment, the audio melds from being like hopefully patriotic to like these sad loose horns.
That love conquers all. I'm your father, not him.
Then the immediate downfall from last season when Homelander found the picture of Tara, Butcher, and Becca in Ryan's bag and yelled at him, pushing him away. That was the last time Homelander officially saw Ryan. And of course, there's the incident when we first brought Ryan into the public eye and a protester threw a can at him, and in retaliation, Homelander blasted him with his laser eyes. They show us the episode Homelander basically destroys Blind Spot's powers in season 2, episode 1. This is the man that basically was Daredevil, and he ruptured his ears and likely his brain. With a quickness, we then see Homelander during Herogasm when he steps on Termite. Who's Termite, you may ask? Well, he's the guy who likes to get really, really tiny and jump into his partner's penis. Yes. And if that wasn't enough, the episode makes us relive some of the show's most brutal moments. Homelander killing the original Black Noir, then Web Weaver, and the poor Vought security employee. We see the Deep murdering a Vought employee during the killing spree Homelander ordered. Ashley begins transforming after taking Compound V, and the rabid animals on the farm after the water supply was infected with V. And finally, we get the recap. And now, looking back at that recap, I should have known they focused a little bit too much on A-Train. Something bad was gonna come of it. Just as I mentioned earlier, where this episode realigns with a lot of the intro of the first episode of the series, in the first episode, Vought was also holding their annual shareholders meeting for 2019 with Madeline Stillwell speaking to the shareholders. This crowd is vibrant and much smaller than the one in 2019, and this guy looks like the spitting image of Charlie Kirk. Just saying. We even focus on him in the crowd in the red hat, and we know those supporters that wear the red hats in our society. And I also like that this woman, the pregnant woman, is credited as Fervent Pregnant Woman. As we know, the boys have been mapping our real life problems in America since the very first season, and it hasn't changed. The show continues to mirror issues like sending federal troops into our cities and ripping people from their families, detention centers, and leaders who seem just too desperate for attention no matter what it causes. At this point, it's not even ironic anymore. It feels more unsettling than anything else, but that's also what the series does really well. It takes real world tensions and asks how superpowered realities might respond to them. And the uncomfortable answer the show keeps giving is, probably not very differently from our own. The Battle of the Hymn of the Republic, a very patriotic song, plays as Homelander graces us like a born again Jesus. They chant USA and applaud for their king. I also like that the arena is reflecting red, white, and blues. Those in the blue are cheering calmly, and those in the red are just like screaming and rowdy as hell. In the back, a bunch of ladies are dressed as Firecracker, and one of those ladies is secretly Annie January, and she is wearing a very padded bra because Firecracker's boobs got bigger from that drug that she was taking to produce milk for Homelander. The stage manager is this guy who will die later, and we can't have the boys without innocent casualties. Remember that. Everyone will probably die. As Annie sneaks away to infiltrate Black Noir stands above her and her accomplices on the catwalk, just plotting. In the AV room, they're planning to disrupt the broadcast system, and I like that in this room they have a Crimson Countess movie poster and a poster for Budweiser that says good things come in small packages, so I assume this is Termite. And during Annie and Noir's fight, before you say Jessica, there's actually one more poster. It's a stock image for Noir movie night, so we don't have to talk about it. While Spencer tries to sabotage the Bob broadcasting system, the Lookout is immediately stabbed by Noir, which we saw in the trailer, so this was expected. When Annie attempts to use her powers, she fucks up the signal, so she's gotta take Noir on with hand-on-hand combat. The music ramps up and Homelander won't stop talking in the background. He has now deemed the Starlighters a terrorist organization. He also brought in the new chairman of the Joint Chiefs, which is the highest ranking military officer in the United States Armed Forces and the principal advisor to the president and the National Security Council, the Homeland Security Council, and the Secretary of Defense. So yes, Homelander gave this role to just a soup, which, you know, our own chairman of the Joint Chiefs is currently trying to balance our president's insane threats and also going to war while also having to abide by it. So like, we're all in the same kind of hell, you know what I'm saying? Regardless, they've introduced General Mayhem, a new character created for the show who's loosely inspired after our real world Secretary of War. Though interestingly, they actually came up with the character before the real life shift back to the Secretary of War. In 2025, the Department of Defense was renamed the Department of War, so even references like this ended up feeling oddly timely for the boys. And according to Kripke, those ideas were planned long before they became real world headlines, something they themselves have said is very upsetting. There's a lot of interviews where Kripke talks about they came up with these plans years before they all became headlines, and in the later episodes for this season, Homelander's gonna say something insane, and Trump has already said it. Trump has already said it. They tried to make it not on the nose. It's just, it's hard to make a clown show when we're living in a clown reality, you know what I'm saying? Homelander says that the movie G-Men Days Past from the Future has grossed over $2 billion, which is insane and probably a lie. And also, this is clearly a parody of X-Men Days of Futures Past. G-Men hasn't really been featured in the show that much, but they do come directly from the comics. Madeline at the shareholders meeting in 2019 mentioned them directly, after acknowledging not only their superhero business making nothing but profit, their latest film, G-Men World War, just grossed shy of $1.7 billion worldwide. So she was telling the truth, and that's a great number. So we're actually really running it back to season 1, episode 1, even with A-Train dodging the girl and Butcher saying diabolical. Homelander in the middle of besmirching Annie and I think almost calling her a whore. The footage immediately pops up from Flight 37, and this footage he's been trying to keep hidden for so long immediately is shown to the public. Then the oh so famous violins begin to play. This is I Can't Do Anything by Christopher Leonard that we all remember from the season 3 finale when Homelander murders that Starlighter. These violins play constantly throughout the 2-episode premiere anytime Homelander knowingly fucks up. He stopped by Sage in that moment before lasering the entire audience, and thank God, and then we get the boys title slam. We're now on the Vought International Instagram page with Sister Sage addressing the Flight 37 video. Why Sage, you may ask? Well, as we know from Gen V season 2, Sister Sage is the CEO of Vought. Back in season 4, episode 3, Homelander appointed Sage as the new Vought CEO. Technically, Ashley was still kind of the CEO, but more like a figurehead. Sage was the real puppet master here. Then in episode 7, Homelander fired Sage after lying to him about A-Train being the leak. And by the end of the season, we never actually saw her formally reinstated, but we know her now as the CEO of Vought. They're calling the video a deepfake, which is exactly what they're going to claim the video of Thomas Goldolkin addressing the students in Gen V season 2 was. But in reality, both of these videos are very real. Meanwhile, the actual deepfakes are the promotional commercials Vought created for the fight between Jordan and Marie.
You shot a commercial for them? They deepfaked us.
In the comments, we see Sage Stan and Starlight loves Satan, and of course, WWG1 WG Vought, which is an abbreviation and slogan used by real QAnon. Where we go one, we go all. There's also another alarming one from Take the Red Pill that asks, where was Starlight the night that Epstein died? What? Sorry, that was crazy. Why would he ask that? There's also one for Gunpowder, who was formerly, you know, Soldier Boy's sidekick, now kind of just a right-wing gun fanatic. Well, he's dead now, but you know. Then we meet the Teenage Kix, who have been posting on the real Vought Instagram page since before the premiere. The Teenage Kix in the comics were the troublemakers, and like in the show, A-Train and Popclaw were former members. Jetstreak was also a member. Dognaught was a member in the comics, but I don't think they ever made it official in the show. The first 2 team members we meet are She-Line, who is like a Catwoman, but acts exactly like a cat, and Jetstreak, both played by Emma L. Patterson and Dylan Colton. Like most young soup teams, they're designed to appeal to a younger demographic, and that shows up in things like TikTok dances. Here, they're using a clip, chopped and screw version of Homelander threatening the innocent passengers on Flight 37. The moment moment is also inspired by the real world, TikTok trend of Homelander screaming at Ashley. They're also clearly mapping real life influencers who are just walking promotions. You can see that She-Line has a QR code tattooed directly onto her body. I tried scanning it in the episode and it wouldn't take me anywhere. However, when you scan their social video, it does take you back to that video. She's also repping Votcoin because of course she is. Jetstreak is also repping all real in-universe Vought brands, Vought Plus, Vought Water. On his back, he has one for Black Noir's Dark Roast. As we remember, they used to traffic drugs into Nicaragua. We've also seen Black Noir's Dark Roast in like Gen V and all over. On his other arm, he also has his own QR code in Turbo Rush. Votcoin Arena, where we were at for Vought on Ice, which is also a play off of, RLA Crypto Arena. Planet Vought, Vought-A-Burger, Vought Fresh Farms, Vought Petroleum, and of course, Vought Studios. Lastly, in the comments, you can see one chatter is Mesmer's apprentice. And as we remember, this is Haley Joel Osment's character, the Snitch. He snitched out Kimiko. I think my favorite takeaway about Teenage Kix are two things. One, they had their own movie, Teenage Kix Home for Kwanzaa 2. Sister Sage's bio in season 4 episode 1 actually mentioned she was the voice in the animated Home for Kwanzaa 1. But also, number 2, Ryan had an offer to join this team last season. Could you imagine Ryan on that team today? Absolutely not. Next, we're with VNN at the White House, where a White House aide introduces us to our new Vice President of the United States, Ashley Barrett, from Madeline Stillwell's assistant to Senior VP of Hero Management, then Director of Talent Relations, and then the CEO of Vought International, and she's now the Vice President of the United States. That's absolutely wild. The first reporter she speaks to is Chris Hayes, who is an actual political commentator who you might remember from All In with Chris Hayes. We learned two things immediately. One, Ashley is a mind reader of some sorts, and two, we're supposed to believe she's been in the closet about her supe powers this entire time. The last time we saw Ashley, she had taken that compound V to protect herself when Homelander sent the Deep and Black Noir after her. We hadn't seen her since, but in Gen V season 2, Sage does say this to Godolkin.
I never took you for the corporate type, TBH.
Ashley Barrett certainly can't. Not in her state.
So between her taking Compound V in The Boys season 4 and Gen V season 2, she wasn't thrilled that Sage had effectively taken over her position, but we later learned that her powers do cause a psychic brain tumor, so that could have sidelined a lot for her. We're now with Sage and Homelander in Sage's office that was once Madeline Stillwell's, then San Edgar's, then Ashley's. It's Sisterhood of the Traveling Pantsing. Her office is so Sage. Remember how her apartment was just filled with books, historical books? Now she has historical artifacts. There's actually a bust that's actually by Sandra Gathinji, a Spartan Greek helmet, a sculpture of Nefertiti. She also name drops Martin Shkreli, aka the Pharma Bro, who was sentenced to 7 years in prison for fraud and sold her that Gutenberg Bible. They talk about a lot of things, but it's very clear Homelander is becoming crazy about his public image and love again. He criticizes how Peter Thiel and the Obamas reach out to her. Homelander complains that people are spreading rumors about what he did to his son, and Sage tells him that their cover story is still holding up, that they sent him away to a boarding school. The last time that we saw Ryan was in season 4's finale when he killed Grace Mallory and then disappeared. Since that incident, his whereabouts have been completely unknown, at least to us. And there's just not enough evidence in the trailer that he'll be here for a good time or a long time. Then Homelander asks if Sage is fine after the Godolkin incident in season 2. He asks if she's been numbing the pain by stabbing herself in the brain, and this is something that Sage does when she wants to relax and eat junk food and just shut her brain down for a bit. It's basically a partial lobotomy, and then part of her brain just grows back after a bit of time. Sage blows it off, and then Homelander requests to know how Starlight got in the building, to which she can't answer. In anger, he criticizes memes about himself.
Have you seen the memes about me? Posting them should be a crime.
And I like that Homelander says that they should treat memes like a crime, and he's full on serious about this, and it kind of reminds me of how Trump is trying to get Erica Kirk to sue Drewski over the conservative woman skit. Homelander says, "You promised me Caesar," which brings us back to last season when Sage was playing him perfectly the first time they met, and he's dumb enough to be unaware that, Caesar's demise was not good. So why would you want to be like Caesar? Then we're at the Freedom Camp, where Frenchie goes about his day listening to this French music. As you can see, this is camp number 47, so there's at least 47 camps. We're all doomed. The camp is exactly how I would imagine a Freedom Camp by Vought to look like. It's sponsored by all types of Vought brands. There's pro-Homelander propaganda everywhere, from what they wear with his flagged cape on their back of their crew necks, to what's painted on the walls, to the food that they even eat, and it's all obviously designed to reprogram these instigators. It's the Vernon Correctional Facility. This is where Stan Edgar was being held before escaping, and the Vernon family was Tech Knight's family. We remember how much he bragged about his wealth and owning private prisons in season 4. The boys realized pretty early on that they were going to use Tech Knight for exactly this reason. Frenchie uses the Deep's book Deeper as a front for his contraband, and the book is about the Deep and his ex-wife Cassandra and their life while exiting the Church of the Collective. Hiding things also in a hollowed out book is a common trope in movies when they're involving prisons, but maybe the most famous example is in The Shawshank Redemption, when Andy used it to hide the tool that he used to dig himself out of the prison. The boys have been doing, well, still not great in this prison, and it's been a year. Mother's Milk is spiraling, drinking and fighting. Frenchie, who's the most recently incarcerated out of them all, is just kind of existing, and Huey is trying to hold on to hope while simply surviving. While Mother's Milk is pounding on this guy, you can see even in the camps, their bedspreads are fucking the Deep and Homelander themed. I would go nuts. I think this fight might be a scam that they're running on everybody else, because Mother's Milk will pick a fight, start losing, then Frenchie bets on him to win, and Mother's Milk turns around and wins the fight, earning them some money. Mother's Milk looks to Frenchie, who gives him a nod, and that's when he starts pounding on this guy. So I think it's all kind of a scam. I don't know if it's just straight water or some form of liquor in that toilet. I think it's supposed to be toilet wine, something that, you know, you can make in prisons from fermented fruits and some other stuff. They're also using the Ho Ho Homelander Christmas mug, which we saw in the Christmas Puppet Show episode with Ryan. Outside, we see Love Sausage beating the shit out of this guy with his dick. And let me tell you, I hate this guy just as much as Mother's Milk. And every time we see this man in the show, he always fucks up Mother's Milk. So this episode, he gets his comeuppance. The fact that they also put supes in this prison with non-powered individuals in this internment camp is like crazy. Right? That's insane. The supes could basically just destroy all of them, and there are no guards really breaking stuff up. Then we're in London, England, visiting Butcher's father, Sam. As some may remember, Sam was abusive to both Billy and his brother Lenny, claiming it would toughen them up, but it ultimately just drove Lenny to kill himself. Butcher resented his father, even when his mother had said that Sam died of cancer, then later showing up to find him still alive, yet still very ill. And then later, thanks to Mindstorm, Billy even has to relive the traumatic memory from his father beating him. So it feels like this was inevitable. Like, Butcher was gonna kill his father one day. So Butcher came to visit Lenny and his mother and knows that this will be his last time to do so, because reminder, Butcher is also dying. Regardless, he noticed there's an empty plot next to his brother and his mom, which Butcher ain't having, and we presume he kills his father here. When he pulls him in for a hug, you can hear Butcher's like tentacle things squelching out of him as his dad gasps, so he's slowly like pushing his tentacles into his dad, which is very gruesome. Back with Homelander, he's now a guest on Firecracker's show The Truth Bomb, and this psycho is just listening to everyone's heartbeat. Since when has he not been a person that was like, being feared is better than being loved? I thought he was always that kind of person. It's so hard for me to establish boundaries. As soon as somebody asks me for something, I find myself putting what they need before what I need. Sometimes that's not the problem, but when my bandwidth is low, it can lead to burnout and resentment. My therapist reminded me that saying no is okay. It's 100% a normal and healthy thing to do and be like, hey, sorry, I can't. You don't need to make up an excuse or have a bulletproof alibi for why you can't get coffee this weekend. You can just say no. And I've gotten tons of little bits of advice like that from therapy that make life so much easier. BetterHelp, the sponsor of today's video, makes therapy easier to access. You fill out a short questionnaire about what you're looking to get out of therapy, then BetterHelp will match you with a therapist based on your preferences, their own clinical experience, and over a decade of matching expertise. You can easily switch therapists at any time at no extra cost if it's not the right fit. Join 6 million plus people who've gotten help from BetterHelp, the platform that you can trust. Click the link in the description or go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Then we see Firecracker, who has an assistant doing her bidding, and she is credited here in the credits, who is funny enough the same person that had to serve Dean Cypher his food in Gen V season 2. So this person stays serving soups. The actress is also an assistant behind the scenes on Gen V, so this feels kind of layered. She schedules a reservation at John George's, a very famous restaurant in New York. One's inside the Trump Hotel. Oh my God. She's also interviewing Elon Musk, of course. When she finally summons the courage to approach Homelander on the stage, we learn she's no longer taking the pills that made her lactate, since they were literally killing her. She's smart enough to stop harming herself for a man, but her heartbeat is still very slow. On the show, they cover the AI Flight 37 video, to which at the bottom of the news headline it states Calhoun administration claims parts of the Constitution unconstitutional. What the hell are they even talking about? Then, as their defense in the video, the motion blurring makes it look like Homelander has extra fingers, and this is the Netanyahu 6 fingers hiding his death rumors, and I just can't do this again. This is now triggering me. And also, how did they make this joke and they shot this show so long ago, and the Netanyahu like 6 fingers thing happened like 2 months ago? Which one came first? This is like The Simpsons. They're psychics. They're knowing what's going on in the future. We're then taken to Manila, Philippines, where Kimiko is hiding out, and these look like Madeline cookies that they're making, which are spongy French cookies. So obviously Frenchie taught her how to make these. She's been gathering a lot of information on the camps, and we later learn that she escaped because they got tired of her constantly taking out the guards. They deported her to Manila, where she tried to return but ended up falling out of a plane and taking forever to heal. This isn't her first time in the Philippines. The Shining Light Liberation Army also had her here too. In her house, there's a poster for Rogers and Hammerstein's South Pacific, which is set during World War II. It follows a young Navy nurse stationed on the South Pacific island who falls in love with a French plantation owner. Their romance faces many challenges, making it just a romantic wartime story. Other than the themes of like racism and social inequality, the story has some very limited similarities to Frenchie and Kimiko. It's also worth noting that Kimiko is a musical musical buff. In season 3, Kimiko was injured and she and Frenchie spent a lot of time watching musicals together, and Kimiko loves the musicals, and there was even a dream sequence musical number where Kimiko sang. Back at the Freedom Camp, we learned from Ivy that all the folks that worked at the Federal Bureau of Superhuman Affairs is all locked up. We saw Ivy working with Huey at the beginning of season 3 there. Huey then gets into this long list of crazy things that he's done and has been through, which in fact has happened throughout the series.
I've been strangled by Ezekiel, I've been hunted by Noir, chased by sharks inside of a whale, shot at by Russians, almost blown up at Herogasm, and lasered at Vought on Ice. Look, the point is, and one time I had to see naked on a chocolate cake. It's a long story.
Then when someone dies, it's revealed another guard is Cindy from the Sage Grove Center, the one that got away. She was the one who went after Huey and Starlight at the finale. Then we're with the Deep, whom I hate with a passion. He's the host of his own new podcast called Manhandled. In this podcast, he spews red pill rhetoric. The room is covered in misogynistic posters. There's a shake weight, which is so manly, and an octopus, which, ew, we know what he does with those and why it shouldn't be there. But I do like that the table doubles as like a navigation system, like on a submarine. As we can tell by now, and judging by Noir's soundboard, our man isn't talking. Later when Homelander approaches, he acts like Noir is fine, while the Deep is too stupid to notice. The last time that we saw the new Black Noir was in Gen V fangirling over Polarity. So why has he suddenly gone silent? This leads two possibilities in my opinion. One, it's Sage is doing, possibly. Maybe a plan B tied to the overall phase 2 plan. Or two, following the comics, this version of Black Noir could literally be a clone of someone, maybe Homelander or a zombie. We'll get into these theories at the end of the video, I promise. Annie smokes a vape now, clearly stressed while watching the Deep's dumbass podcast. She's working out of a small little camp, and hold the fuck up because Kimiko is now talking. This is insane, I love her. We saw her scream no at the end of the last season when she and Frenchie got separated and taken, but other than that, she's really not that super verbal. We learned that Butcher still wants to create the virus and needs to save Frenchie before they're executed in 36 hours. Together, Butcher, Kimiko, and Annie must plan a rescue mission. Meanwhile, Mother's Milk knows that this is a trap for Annie and all hope is lost, and since if they even do escape, the world is still inevitably doomed, so Mother's Milk is not really that helpful this episode. Yet, Huey does keep making Molotov cocktails in case. Then we're with Ashley Barrett in an exclusive interview with Firecracker talking about her new partner, who is O-Father, played by Daveed Diggs. In the comics, he was also the organizer for Capes for Christ. His chains have a very like Illuminati design, but it's a cross built to also look like an O and an F for his name. In the comics, he did molest children, but he might not be doing that in the show. But weirdly, in season 3, people had found these news clippings from Mother's Milk's closet where he was tracking a lot of different soups, and one of them has an accusation of a certain youth pastor abusing someone, which could have been O-Father. While talking to Firecracker, they shout out Ezekiel. Ezekiel died last season to Butcher's tentacles, if you remember. Vought is doing what it does best, starting manufactured stories. So because the United States didn't want to elect a single woman to be their vice president, they had to force Ashley to fake a relationship to the public with O-Father. Sage tells Ashley that Homelander wants more Starlighters sent to the freedom camps, and Ashley responds that they've already purged the CIA, the DOJ, FBI, FTC, CDC, EPA, DHS, HHS, and USPS. Whew! Which unfortunately kind of mirrors our real world economy and reflects some of what's happening in the United States right now. Well, it's not necessarily like purging them, but draining, you could say. Ashley also says that they deported the nation's nannies and gardeners. They've done more than that. And they also arrested Chaperone and Tyler the Creator, which God... Okay, we're done. We're done. It's also funny because she mentions that this is happening during Coachella and they canceled Coachella week, which has officially started this week. We're then with the Worm character who was working on a Reacher spec script for season 5, episode 1, and it's funny because Reacher is an Amazon Prime show, just like The Boys. On his desktop, you can see the Rings of X, a Reacher fan edit, and I think that says Wheel of Time, and I think it's just showing he's making a bunch of scripts for Amazon, many of which are probably just as dirty as this one. He's clearly a cinephile. He's got Pop Claw's movie poster, and he's got Crimson Countess's movie poster. He mentions later when talking to Kimiko that he actually wrote the series finale for it. He's wearing a Mesmer Mystery Mansion sweatshirt, and this is the second Mesmer name drop in this episode. Mesmer also had the show The Mesmerizer. Butcher notices his downgraded digs, and the Worm says, "It's not my fault that there was a contraction in the TV business." And this is a real thing TV writers are dealing with, and a lot of it, in fact, is due to streamers like Amazon breaking a model that had worked since the inception of television in the interest of streamlining profits for tech bro billionaires and shareholders. When the Worm tells Butcher to go, Butcher says, "You haven't even heard my pitch yet," and the Worm replies, "Pass, well told, whatever." In the TV writer world, if you pitch a show and the execs say, "well told," that's jokingly like the kiss of death. It's considered to be the thing that execs say when they're not going to pick up the show and they're instead just going to pass. Butcher mentions having blackmail on Worm, where he was messaging Miranda Cosgrove, who was famous for iCarly, and this dude is just gross as hell. The Worm says Vought replaced all their writers with AI, and again, Amazon is one of those companies that is trying to replace writers and artists with AI. So I'm actually impressed that they let Kripke leave this line in here, although Although maybe the scores went way up on Roddy T's line was their compromise, like, oh, you think AI is terrible, but what if it's better than human writers? Either way, you know, fuck AI and fuck replacing writers with it. It's fucking stupid. They know it. They know it is. The worm's powers clearly involve also eating dirt like a worm and using that skill to make tunnels. So that's also cool. And there's also a photo with him and Michael Bay. A-Train shows up after Annie calls on him in hopes that maybe he can help them get out of the freedom camps once they go in for the rescue mission. We quickly learn that he doesn't want to go because he's protecting his family, and going into the camps would be almost a certain death sentence. In their conversation, they do talk about a raid in Pittsburgh that was stopped by Marie Moreau and her team. Those are the kids from Gen V. At the end of Gen V, A-Train and Annie asked them if they wanted to join the resistance against Voss and Homelander, and it's clear that they're now part of the team. We also saw them in the trailer as well, but they can only do just so much, as Annie mentions. Back inside the prison camp, the intercom in the camp tells them that they're screening today and tomorrow will be the Dawn of the Seven, and we know what the Dawn of the Seven is. This is the movie made by Voss, starring the remaining seven against Stormfront, played by Charlize Theron. Huey returns to his bunk to get more alcohol from the Molotov cocktails hidden in the walls of their unit. Inside, Homelander has murdered everyone and is creepily reading Huey's journal or diary, whatever the hell. He said he killed all these people because they were protecting Huey and his stash of alcohol, which Voss apparently already knew about, but just enjoyed teasing Huey with the hope that maybe he can break free. What's really interesting here is that Homelander's decline as a sociopath, he envies Huey so much, who has so many people constantly in his corner at all times, and Homelander just doesn't get it. He's like, why do people like you? You can't do anything. Sociopath. Empathy. You're crazy. In Brittany, France, A-Train is protecting his brother and nephews by constantly moving them around the globe, and even from this setup and the way that the episode builds, it is so clear that A-Train is going to be the one that dies at the end. The show carefully builds the emotional momentum around him, reminding us just how deeply connected and invested we are in his character. And by the time we see his death and the credits roll to complete silence, we're just shook. We're sat there, we're shook, we're quiet by just how much A-Train accomplished, how beautiful and powerful he was, and all the obstacles he overcame, and all the last bouts of chaos just kind of led to this, and I knew he was gonna die. I said he was gonna die, I just didn't think it was gonna be in episode 1. That's crazy. One of his nephews immediately notices birds flying over the water, and he clocks that it's the Deep. He quickly gets his brother and nephews to evacuate, leading to a one-on-one with the Deep and the Deep shark in the background. The shark's name is Xander. Also in the credits, he was puppeted. Back with Kimiko, Butcher, and Annie, and the Worm, he has a bit of a meta nod to Kripke, being very nervous about how the audience will react to the finale of The Boys. He says that he wrote the finale of Crimson Countess's Capers, and it was impossible to wrap up every loose end to make the fans all happy, and that finales are the worst. And Kripke's basically saying to the audience, please give me a break here. He also mentions the Lost finale, which a lot of fans nitpicked over and still are nitpicking over today. We find out real quick why his name is the Worm, and that's because he takes off his pants, there's nothing underneath, and he digs his body into the hole and shoots dirt through his asshole. Yeah. Actually, because you know what the funny thing was? And Josh knows this, Josh who's editing this, he knows this. We were talking about breaking down the series, and I said, I bet in the first episode there's gonna be butthole. And guess what we see? Lo and behold, surprise, not a surprise, I was correct. We see a butthole. We see a man fully bent over in a booty hole. How many buttholes have we seen in The Boys?
Clean up.
I don't understand why he has no genitals and also doubles as kind of like a wood chipper for dirt, so I went to New Rockstars man of science Alex Berg, who informed me the ring around the first third of them is actually genitals, but they definitely don't have penises or vaginas. And then he sent me this and said, as for the shitting thing, kind of honestly. So I guess there you go. I did my journalism for you guys. I figured out why the Worm is like that. When they arrive, Homelander has Mother's Milk, Frenchie, and Huey all detained, and in a disturbing moment, he makes a gross jab at himself, not realizing that Mother's Milk's nickname is Mother's Milk, and then he licks his lip like it's like a gross snake. I hate this scene. I hate this scene. I hate this scene. Kimiko then curses him out, and he responds by cutting her in half with his laser eyes. And it's okay because she'll regenerate, but still, she still feels pain. Homelander can see inside Butcher's tentacle cancer body, and believing Butcher created it specifically to fight him, which is true, but it's a twisted form of devotion that he's looking at it with. Butcher hates him so intensely that in his own warped way, Homelander feels like it's a kind of like kindred love. Like, that's sad, dude. Starlight then pushes her powers to the max, temporarily blinding Homelander, giving everyone a chance to escape the unit. In the chaos of their escape, Mother's Milk fights and kills Love Sausage. Huey rushes to help Ivy. Butcher takes on Cindy, and Frenchie and Kimiko fall for each other and make out, and Annie is forced to save them. Butcher is quickly knocked down by Homelander just as he's about to take out Cindy, then he disappears. Outside, Homelander has snatched up Huey after killing Ivy, and Butcher rushes to save Huey, and then time seems to stop all of a sudden, and that's when A-Train appears, speeding through the camp like Quicksilver, saving Huey but taking a hit from Homelander's lasers. Homelander then chases A-Train closely, a very Superman versus like the Flash style pursuit. Those two raced many times in the comics, comics, even in the 2017 Justice League. The Flash is faster and almost always wins, so I'm guessing that if he could have pushed himself, A-Train maybe could have outran Homelander. But part of this here is that he's buying the others time to escape by keeping Homelander occupied. We're then reminded what brought A-Train to us all those years ago. What began with him racing through the streets, racing through Robin, now ends with him dodging a young woman that kind of resembles Robin, and avoiding her causes him to crash through the trees where Homelander catches up. Despite this, A-Train manages to laugh in Homelander's face, calling Homelander a pathetic, a loser, a shell of a man, let alone a superhero, to which Homelander kills A-Train. And the thing is, again, I knew A-Train was gonna die, and I said he would, but I just didn't think it was gonna be this soon, and I love Jesse T. Usher. So if he comes back as a zombie, I'll allow it. Episode 2 is titled Teenage Kix, and they're now using A-Train's death and implying that it was Annie that did it and not Homelander. Even holding a funeral for him here is kind of insane. We see O-Father has the ability to let out this strong sonic scream, and he sounds like the devil in the scene, but then the light hits Homelander, and we hear Madeline Stillwell calling him a sweet boy, and what the fuck? What is happening? Where is she? Is he a ghost? Get her out of here. The light instantly goes out and there's a panic on his face. We're then taken to Erie County Public Elementary School in Erie, Pennsylvania, and this has become their new hideout while they're on the run. We then hear Chumbawamba's tub thumping.
Chumbawamba. It's the soundtrack to my life, man.
Inside the small library, the scientist, aka Victoria Newman's boyfriend, aka Zoe's dad, is still working on the virus. Also, side note, behind Huey, there is a Go Vegan poster for the Deep. Also, in the worst news, he doesn't know that Butcher actually killed Victoria. So now we've got both sides lying about deaths and what caused them. Butcher has become no better than Homelander and Bot. As everyone starts arguing, the group becomes divided. Some want to use the virus, others are against it, and a few recognize just how dangerous the entire situation is. In the middle of all the chaos, they realize that if they're going to move forward, they need to test the virus first. And the problem is, they don't know whether it could also kill humans or only target supes. Their solution is to test it on someone nearly as indestructible as Homelander, but much easier to capture, so they decided to target a member of the Teenage Kix, Hurd, who is made of complete rock and a filthy fucking teenager. They're watching Truth Bomb with Firecracker again, and she claims that A-Train was murdered by Starlight. Along the bottom of the news ticker, it says, facing prison, Mr. Marathon accepts court-ordered stay at Global Wellness Malibu. First, when you hear Global Wellness Center, this place should sound familiar. It's created by Vought and designed to help supes with therapy. However, we did see in Gen V Season 2 that the guards at Elmira were also managed by the Voughts at the Global Wellness Center. Additionally, Groundhawk was sent to the Global Wellness Center for his alcoholism and anger issues. Termite was sent here after he killed a man during a cocaine overdose, and Supersonic and Webweaver were sent to the Global Wellness Center for their drug addictions. This place just holds a lot of history. Mr. Marathon is a character that we've heard a lot about before, but haven't actually seen in the show yet. He is referenced on Mr. Marathon Catering, which I believe was just like a fake catering company duped by the boys. Regardless, Mr. Marathon is a speedster, and in the trailer in the background with Jared Padalecki, you can see a cheetah and a man sprinting in the painting. Mr. Marathon also did wear these sort of shorts, just like in the painting. So other than Shockwave and A-Train and whoever Harper touched in Gen V to speed around the campus, this portrait has to be a Mr. Marathon, and I think that will be Jared Padalecki's character. Everyone goes back to arguing about the virus, about Butcher, and about what they should do next, and the group is now divided. Much like last season, Mother's Milk and Annie were aligned, but their perspective has now shifted. Last season, they believed in doing as much good as possible while avoiding innocent casualties. Now it feels like they've just accepted that there may be a lot of casualties, and that the only way to move forward might be to, like, you know, break even, unfortunately. Annie is also carrying a lot of trauma and guilt, which connects back to Gen V Season 2. When Annie approached Marie in that season, she talks about how people constantly die in her name and how much she hates that. In this season, we're seeing just how heavily that burden weighs on her. All the deaths tied to her cause, including A-Train's, are clearly haunting her. Meanwhile, Huey and Kimiko believe that there has to be another way that doesn't involve killing every supe on the planet. Frenchie is stuck in the middle of all of this. He knows that the virus is likely going to be used whether he agrees to it or not. The only thing he can really focus on now is finding a way to protect Kimiko. In less sad news, Mother's Milk is now continuing to wear artist t-shirts, but this time it's Britney Spears, baby.
It's Britney, bitch.
Instead of arguing, both Huey and Annie and Kimiko and Frenchie bang each other. Well, not, you know, as a four-way. They're separated. They're separated banging their prospective people, you know what I'm talking about? It's all too much for me, and playing is never tear us apart. But I will say, in a hilarious kind of note, because up until right now, like recently, Kimiko was literally torn in half. So that part was kind of funny. After everyone leaves A-Train's funeral, Homelander's alone talking to the the closed casket, and he complains that A-Train left him with no choice and insists that while his leadership may have been stern, it was very much necessary. In his mind, he saw himself as the older brother A-Train never had, which is actually a crazy thing to say because A-Train does have an older brother who we literally saw last episode and also who was paralyzed by Groundhog, and like the reason why he has a heart now from Groundhog, like, well, is Homelander even a good boss? Is he even listening? He keeps rambling, even misnaming Popclaw as Pop Fang. He claims that after she was exposed by Butcher, he gave A-Train a second chance, and of course, what he conveniently ignores is the fact that Popclaw had to die in that situation. Homelander even wonders if maybe he was too nurturing. He insists that A-Train wasn't a snake or a backstabber and says that he thought he could count on him. And then he asks, why does this keep happening to me? He'll ask that again at the very end of this episode. So yeah, Homelander is completely unhinged. That's when he gets a new idea and decides to reconnect with his father, Soldier Boy, and cue the violins again. They never play the violins at good moments. Like the title of the song, I Can Do Anything, he literally feels untouchable. We're now with the real She line. She's drinking diet water. It's called Lean Lady, which is fake, but there is a diet pill called Lady Lean, so maybe it's mocking that. The funny part is not a single person is chatting in her video or engaging with her. It's just like people liking the stream, I guess. Then it's Jetstreak selling Firecracker's Freedom Sticks. We saw these actually in Gen B, and it seems like she's got a new product from one of the commenters. Is Firecracker's new Flaming Freedom Nicotine Gum. Jesus Christ. Then we meet Countess Crow, played by Maitreyi Ramakrishnan, who you might have seen on Never Have I Ever. Whoa. I like that one of her chatters asked, what happened to all your crows? And we later learned that She-Line has straight up ate majority of them.
She-Line ate crows? Damn.
She's also doing a Vitality Vamp Glamp tutorial, which reminds me of Huey's mom from last season, who was also a Vitality consultant. Ashley even promoted their shampoos. They're doing surveillance from within this pack and go truck, and they've used this before in season 1, episode 3. The gang makes it inside the Teenage Kix house, and they find in the basement Rock Hard, and he's a lot heavier than 900 pounds because this man is a giant mountain of granite rock. It's actually revealed a little bit later that this man has just been ejaculating lava for God knows how long, which cools and condenses from the base of his body upward and gradually just building layers upon layers of hardened rock and making him into an enormous brick mess. Now, that sentence all felt too sexual for me, and I hope that's the most I have to say in The Boys, but I know it won't be. I know it won't be. Back with Homelander, he's now thawed Soldier Boy, and he's wearing a Sorry Snowflake I'm Homelander shirt, which we actually saw before in Gen V Season 2, worn by a young man who was harassing one of the baristas. Homelander lies and tells Soldier Boy that he's been frozen for 2 years, which is true, but then he claims he only found out about it this morning, and Soldier Boy immediately questions it, asking if that's the case, why is my cryo chamber sitting in the middle of your room? You brought it in this morning? The two go back and forth, the Soldier Boy still not trusting anyone and being his, normal everyday asshole self, while Homelander feels like he's on his last leg. He clearly needs help, but even more than that, he seems desperate for someone to just trust and even love him, which makes the whole interaction honestly deeply uncomfortable and strange for me. Also, we get this very funny line from Jensen Ackles.
I'm no ass felching commie.
How much do you think they pay him to say this crazy ass shit? Because that's such a crazy thing to say. Like, what the hell? He's not improvising that. No one's improvising this. Homelander presents Soldier Boy's shield, and it's pieced back together, broken, barely usable, and of course he's got to say something mean about it.
Looks like a fucking kindergarten ashtray.
We shift focus, and we're with the Deep Sigma Solarium from Vought Wellness, where he's using solar energy in his ass. I don't care, and I don't care. It turns out Rock Hard can hold his breath for a very long time, and when Huey asks how they're supposed to defeat someone like that, Butcher reminds them that this isn't their first whale, which is a clear callback to when he literally drove a boat into a whale. Back at Vought, Sage presents a map highlighting all the major Starlight areas, and of course, we're heavily Starlighters in California, let it be known. Meanwhile, Firecracker asks where Black Noir has been, and the Deep says he's been disappearing and adds that it might be his method acting, and he even critiques the Meisner technique that he's been doing that I did in college. To which Firecracker asks ignorantly, is this a Jewish thing? And you can genuinely tell that Chase Crawford is laughing here. Look at him laugh. Sage mentions that BotBook algorithm does most of the hard work for them, which is funny because, BotBook is a mock of Facebook, and yeah, I'm sure it helps in the same figures. And like every season, we add another member to the 7, and it's Soldier Boy as the number 2 now. In the funniest moment, I cracked up out loud at this scene. Homelander forces the president to make him a Manhattan, and to save face, the president asks if Homelander would like a glass of milk, and Homelander snaps at him. When Homelander gloats, we see the painting on the ceiling no longer has the rest of the 7 on it. It's just Homelander. And this must have happened after he sent the Deep and Black Noir to kill everyone inside the building, because when did they do this? So the plan with the boys is already a go. They're gonna plan to use the virus on Rock Hard while in the basement, so they prep the vents and keep the virus from leaking. Mother's Milk is getting drunk, of course, when he finds She-Line's giant giant litter box, and it's also a sign that if cats don't cover their turds, they don't respect you or they're being territorial. So I don't know what that really means to a grown woman like Sheline. Up the stairs, we have Teenage Kix' Wall of Fame, which starts with Jetstreak, Countess Crow, Sheline. We also see Sage, A-Train, Popclaw, and Translucent. Mother's Milk, drunk, mind you, sneaks up on Countess Crow and easily takes out 2 of her crows by swaddling them in a bedsheet and just tossing them out the room. We later learn that their names are Russell and Cameron. Yes, like Russell and Cameron Crow, which honestly is more eye-opening that there's a lot of celebrities with the last name Crow. Vought now has police and Supes rounding up people, forcing them out of their homes and into the buses for their freedom camps. They're even making people burn books, specifically ones connected to Starlight, including something as harmless as like a Starlight-themed cookbook published by Vought itself. There's also something especially disturbing about watching a home that clearly represents and supports inclusivity just being raided. To make it worse, Sheline is using this moment to film her own Turbo Rush ad. And an interesting note for here, and maybe this is just me that noticed it, or me that's maybe wrong, Turbo Rush was an A-Train branded beverage, and on the can you see Homelander. I don't know if this has always been the case or they just switched it up after his death. After successfully shooting the reel, they take away the child from their mother, and it's an unfortunate, reality that we've been witnessing far too often in America right now. And whoever that young actor is, those tears that they're delivering is a little too convincing. I'm genuinely curious, a little worried. What did you guys do behind the scenes to make this child cry? Did you like punt a dog? Like this child is serving. Back with Sister Sage and Homelander, Homelander tries to pretend that he wasn't persuaded by his father and didn't release him out of desperation. Instead, he frames it as a strategic move, claiming that it was purely tactical so that someone else could take the fall instead of them. He's lying. Sage sees straight through his bullshit, and right on cue, the violins start playing again, right when she leaves the room, and it kind of forces Homelander to recognize he might have reacted too suddenly and hadn't really thought this through. Bringing Soldier Boy back from cryo. Why would that ever be a good idea? Back with the boys, Mother's Milk has a heart-to-heart with Countess Crow, and this poor girl doesn't even really want to be a part of this team, and I think it's very telling that she can't willingly leave. She mentions she just wants to go home and see her mom and dad, but I don't think she really can. Back with Huey, Kimiko, and Butcher in the middle of their fight about Annie, suddenly Soldier Boy's shield smashes into the car windshield. Soldier Boy watches Huey and Kimiko escape and then warns Butcher being a supe ain't gonna save him here. Butcher tries to get inside Soldier Boy's head using a bit of psych manipulation, something that's also very easy to do to him or Homelander. He tries to remind him who he's really fighting for and who he's fighting against, and in doing so, Butcher also reveals that they have a supe-killing virus, which suddenly makes Homelander's supposed plan sound a lot more believable now.
Exactly.
When Sheline and Jetstreak show up, they see Soldier Boy, and I genuinely love this scene.
What? You're a dead socialist. The fuck?
These children are so easy, and the fact that he uses a slur on Kimiko and then calls Huey a fairy, it's really giving get your twink and get the fuck out!
Take your fucking twink and get the fuck out of here!
So they're all alerted that Soldier Boy is now coming, and Kimiko has to take on Sheline, and funny enough, they both have like a certain prowess and technique of fighting that's very cat-like. Huey's yanked up by Jetstreak and inevitably dropped from the skies. Luckily, Annie catches him, and Kimiko knocks out Sheline, and Soldier Boy now follows Butcher straight into the trap, and I just love the way that these two jog. Downstairs, we get this reunion between Soldier Boy and Huey is so right. He keeps using gay jokes, and I don't know why he does this. Also, I love the idea that A-Train told off Homelander last episode, and this episode, Huey's kind of giving it to Soldier Boy, so who's gonna get choked out next episode and have some good final words? Then suddenly, Jetstreak starts reacting to the virus in a way that looks very similar to what we saw happen to the kids in Gen V. He begins vomiting black liquid as painful pus-filled boils form across his face. Meanwhile, Rockhard completely deteriorates, and it becomes clear that the virus really does kill them. Later, as they leave, it's revealed that Mother's Milk let Countess Crow escape in secrecy. Back with Sage, we know our girl wants her Taco Bell, and it doesn't seem as though she had to lobotomize herself this time to get it, but she still loves her Taco Bell. And also, let me tell you, a Cantina Crispy Taco, I'll take 10. I'll take 10 stat. Sage has a talk with Ashley that's kind of bullshit. Ashley wants to understand Sage's angle, but Sage insists that she's simply just existing, or at least that's what she claims. And honestly, it feels like Sage might still be reeling from that heartbreak in season 2 of Gen V, and the position of power that she's in is just a perfect distraction. She gets whatever she wants, stays firmly above everyone else, and makes sure she's never the one at the bottom, because in that world, that's exactly where you end up getting killed. So for a person who doesn't care about anyone anymore, why would she care to do anything? She needs a better incentive than this just isn't okay. Ashley returns to her SUV with her Secret Service when it's revealed that she's that fucking professor in Harry Potter with the face of Lord Voldemort on the back of her head. Oh my god. Also, this is genuinely very funny for Ashley. This is a very funny power for Ashley.
Do I get laser eyes? No, I get a psychic fucking tumor.
So not only does this power get to be Ashley's like voice of reason, but she's able to read some people's minds, with exception to, Sage and I presume Homelander, since she couldn't even recognize if he was in the building in the first place. Her psychic tumor then goes on to remind her how this is like junior senior year all over again. And Danny Trachtenberg is our boy from the recent Predator movies and 10 Cloverfield Lane. Like, why are you allowing him to finger blast you, Ashley, for Jamiroquai tickets? Virtual insanity is not that good. Yeah, it is. Ashley begins fighting herself. She has to use a compact mirror facing the window to make eye contact with the back of her head, which is genuinely insane. And when her psychic tumor tries to reason with her, they bring up this famous quote. And it's the quote where they say, first they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. Which I don't even need to explain how this resonates today in America, but for Ashley, I mean, like, yeah, bitch, do something. Jesus Christ.
From back here, I see a spine. Use it.
Instead, she threatens to drown the back of her head again in the bathtub by floating and laying back. Ashley, so scared. Back at their headquarters, the scientist finds no trace of virus on them, so it's not affecting humans, which is great. And if you look at Mother's Milk's shirt, he's now wearing a Hoobastank shirt, and we all love Hoobastank. Kimiko now realizes that they have to actually stay instead of run from this fight, and the virus will need to be released to save the rest of the innocent people being killed in the crossfire. Huey and Annie finally talk instead of fuck, and this is a scene that we saw in the trailer. Huey vows to keep fighting for both of them so long as Annie promises not to turn into Butcher. You know, a heartless, dead shell of a man. Butcher also brought Terror and the Terror cookie jar and his brother's trophy with him, and look, our man still kind of has a heart. Even though he's not taking care of himself or others, he does take care of Terror still. Back at Teenage Kix, they take the virus bodies out and Homelander is so emotional over Soldier Boy. The violins begin playing again as he begs, not you too. When he turns around, the body rises in the bag, and now we know something that the boys don't know. Then of course, Chumbawamba begins playing again, which is perfectly timed with Soldier Boy rising up like a corpse. It looks like the virus has killed the Teenage Kix along with Soldier Boy, but Soldier Boy manages to return.
Somehow, Soldier Boy
Returned.
More like Soldier Doy. Am I right?
I assume he died because Homelander was listening to like every heartbeat at one point in this episode, so like he couldn't just hear Soldier Boys randomly. No, I think he had to be dead. There's also just like a lot of moving parts that could be at play here, right? This could also be because of the older version of Compound V in his system, or possibly the strange effects from the experiments the Russians performed on him. There are a lot of variables at play here, and what feels right in avoiding any trailer spoilers is that we don't really see a wide range of soup subjects tested with the virus. And that matters because different generations of soups may react differently. That was the whole reason of the Sage Grove Center to test Compound V on adults. Younger soups today, when they were babies, probably used a more standardized version of Compound V and might simply die from the virus, while people who use Temp V could react in another way entirely. Then there are the earliest successful soups from like the 1940s, like Soldier Boy, whose Compound V is older and potentially more resilient. When the early version of the virus was tested on Kimiko's leg, it was immediately amputated, so we never actually learned whether it would have killed her outright or whether her healing factor would have allowed her to eventually like come back. Because of that, it's possible Soldier Boy's Compound V didn't just keep him alive, but actually reanimated him. That would line up with the idea from the boys' comics where the experiments resulted in like zombie soups. The catch is that even if that works for Soldier Boy, it probably wouldn't work cleanly for everyone else. Instead of reviving people normally, it might create unstable reanimated soups. And honestly, that could explain what's going on with Black Noir right now. I know that we haven't seen what is happening with Black Noir, and it feels like a bit of out of left field kind of moment, but we'd probably get a flashback showing what happened between the events of Gen V Season 2 and now. Remember, only Sage and Black Noir were in the room when Polarity had escaped and eventually helped kill Godokin. That leaves an easy pawn for Black Noir, someone Sage could easily blame for freeing Polarity and killing Doug, who to the outside world likely wasn't seen as Godokin's puppet, but as a respected dean and resource and bot veteran. Sage could spin a narrative where in reality Black Noir was either locked up and experimented on or simply just killed, and it's not hard to hide anything under Homelander's nose, to be fair, so yeah, that might not be like a good Noir in there. There's also a chance that Compound V and Soldier Boy's body reacted to the virus in a different way and simply just stripped him of all of his powers. Maybe not all of them, but possibly just the nuclear blast that comes out of his chest. That might explain why the show keeps focusing on his other main piece of equipment, his shield, which we repeatedly see damaged and never fully put together, and the broken shield could just be mirroring what's happening to Soldier Boy himself. His greatest power, the thing that once made him feel unstoppable, may be that thing that's gone, leaving him incomplete in the same way that his shield is. There's a theory also floating around that Black Noir might actually be Polarity from Gen V. In Gen V, Black Noir was a huge Polarity fan, and if his powers were no longer limited by that neurological defect that he had, he could be significantly stronger. In theory, he could have staged something involving Noir, but the way that Noir fought Annie makes that theory feel a little unlikely in my opinion. It just doesn't like quite match Polarity's character to fight like that. And also, last but not least, where the hell is Ryan? We only see him twice in the trailer and it's around the same type of shots. I understand he's on the run, but he literally is the most sheltered child in the world. Does he even know how to be on the run? Who's helping him? Where is he at?
Where is that f***ing brat?
Bring that boy? There's so many questions and we won't know anything until next week on episode 3. Comment down below your thoughts on the 2-episode premiere, and also where is Ryan? I'm sorry, where is he? Where is he? And a special thanks to one of our YouTube members, Penguin, who supports us at the executive producer level. A big thanks to Gina Ippolito for helping me research and write this video, and studio tech Brian Kim, and our new Rockstars editors Joshua Stephen Hurd and Abby Freel, and all the supporting editors that worked on this video. And also follow me at Lulu_Clemons. Subscribe to all the channels in the New Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week for episode 3.